Hello everyone, welcome to Center for Distance in Online Education, Kichu University. In this lecture, we will talk a little bit on historical materialisms by Karl Marx. I am Akumsenla Kichu, guest faculty of sociology, CTUE, Kichu University. This lecture will be helpful for your MASOT 101 Classical Sociological Thoughts, Unit 3, The Sociology of Karl Marx, particularly 3.6, where the historical materialisms. Before we dive into, let's have a brief understanding of who Karl Marx is. He was a German philosopher, economist, and a political theorist born in 1818 and died in 1883. Talking about a brief history of his earlier life, influences, and contribution, he was enrolled in Bonn University in 1835 to study law, but later he was transferred to University of Berlin in 1836, where he pursued philosophy and history. In Berlin, he became associated with young Hegelians, a group of radical thinkers influenced by the philosophy of George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. In 1880s, he moved to Paris. During that time, the Paris was a vibrant center for radical thoughts, and it offers Marx the opportunity to engage with various political and philosophical movements, where he also associated with Friedrich Engels, another young radical thinker who played a very crucial role in his intellectual development. Talking about his earlier contributions and some of the major works of Karl Marx, in 1843, critics of Hegel's philosophy of right criticized the idealist conceptions of state by Hegel's. Karl Marx, political institutions and laws are not a manifestations of abstract ideas, but rather it is rooted and shaped by economic base and class relations of society. This work laid the groundwork for Marxist theory that state serves the interests of the ruling class rather than representing a collective will. The next important work, early work of Karl Marx is Economics and Philosophical Manuscript. It is also known as Paris Manuscript, published in 1844. It contains early idea of alienations, historical materialisms, and communisms. This writing marks a significant departure from Hegelian philosophy and laid the groundwork for Karl Marx's later works. Like mentioned earlier, his acquaintance with Friedrich Engels has contributed a lot, not only in Karl Marx writing, but also Marxist thoughts in general. And some of the notable collaborations of Karl Marx and Engels is found in the Communist Manifesto 1848. The core concept is the class struggle as the driving forces of history. The manifesto argues that all historical society have been defined by conflict between the ruling and oppressed class. It's talking about the capitalist era where the struggle is between the bourgeoisie and the proletariats. The manifesto also called to overthrow this capitalism and proposed to establish a classless and communist society. Another very important work of their collaborative work is Das Kapital. It is of 3 volumes. The first volume was published in 1867, The Process of Productions of Capitals, and the second volume was published in 1885, The Process of Circulation of Capitals, and the third volume published in 1895, The Process of Capitalist Production as a Whole. This work offers a comprehensive critique of capitalism, focusing on the dynamics of capitals, the labor processes, and the social relation that underpins the capitalist system. Earlier, Karl Marx's life was characterized by intellectual explorations, engagements with practical ideas, and formations of ideological foundations that would later lead to the significant contributions to his writing. Marxism does not mean exclusively the idea of Karl Marx, even though it predominantly contains his idea. It is a body of ideas, not only his,
but also Frederick Engels and other supporters who called themselves Marxists. The phrase Marx is dead, but Marxism is still alive, which means even though Karl Marx is dead, the idea and thoughts are still continued and contributed by the philosopher of Marxism. Marxist philosophy exists even before the birth of Karl Marx. It is evident from the work of David Mackland in his three-volume work on Marxism, namely Marxism before Marx, thought of Karl Marx, and Marxism after Marx. Karl Marx also agreed that the idea of Marxism was exist even before him, and he called earlier socialist thinker as utopian socialist, like Robert Owens, Louis Blunt, Saint-Simon, etc. He considered them as utopian because he agreed to the explanations they have give of the social problems. However, he do not agree with the remedies that they are providing, and he considered them to be unpractical, and therefore he called them as utopians. Karl Marx considered his socialisms as scientific socialisms because it offers the economic interpretations of history by using the scientific methodology of dialectical materialism. It also explained not only the true causes of exploitations but also offered the scientific remedies of revolutions and to cure the social exploitations. It also provides scientific reasons for class divisions and struggle in society, provide a scientific mechanism to establish a classless society where there is no exploitation. As mentioned earlier, Karl Marx and Hegel were closely associated. Their divergence comes when Karl Marx accepts the concept of dialectics, which basically means the conflicting or contradictions, but he do not agree on the idea of idealism. According to Karl Marx, the material things is the realm of truth, and he tries to reach the truth through materialism. This is why Karl Marx's theory is known as historical materialism, while Hegel's system is called as dialectical idealism.
Some basic concepts let's try to understand before we dive into the historical materialism. The first one is base and superstructure. According to Marx, society is made up of two parts, base and superstructure. Base, we are talking about the material aspect, the means of relations in productions, like tools, resources, factory settings, those kind of aspects we are talking. And the superstructures, we are talking about institutions like culture, politics, ideologies, laws, religion, this kind of any other aspect that is outside the economic is considered as superstructure. And according to Karl Marx, he argues that this economic base shapes and determines the superstructure, and the superstructure in turn serves to maintain the economic base, as given in the image, how the base influences superstructure, and again come back to superstructure influencing the base. Another concept is dialectical materialism. Talking about dialecticals, it is a process of contradictory ideas that evolves from simples to more sophisticated explanations. The idea of contradictions were agreed by Marx, but he applied it in understanding the material world rather than developing the idea. Another aspect is class struggle. His theory of class struggle is based on the idea that society is made up of two main classes, the ruling and the oppressed class. The next one is stages of historical developments. This the class struggle that exists in every society is the driving force behind the developments of new stage of human society. Karl Marx's theory of historical materialism identified several stages of society, which we will be discussing in the later part. Another important aspect is modes of production. It refers to the ways a society organizes its economic activities, specifically how it produces, distributes, and consumes goods and services. When we are talking about the modes of productions, there are means of production, process of productions, and the relations of productions. Means of productions, when we are talking, we are basically focusing on the physical tools and infrastructure used to produce goods and services, such as factory, land, raw materials, etc. Forces of productions includes everything that is used to produce goods and services, such as labor, power, along with the means of productions. It determines the capacity of society to produce wealth, and forces of productions are constantly evolving, which leads to the changes in the modes of production. The last one is the relation of productions. These are the social structure that regulates the relations between people and the productions of goods. This relation determines who controls the means of productions like land, factory, tools, etc., and how the products of labors are distributed among the members and society. The last concept is consciousness. Karl Marx's theory of consciousness includes the idea of class consciousness and false consciousness. Class consciousness, we are talking about awareness. Karl Marx believed that the workers would develop consciousness under the excessive exploitations and oppressions by the ruling class. They will develop class consciousness. They're getting aware of their social class, economic rank, and common interests. He believed that this awareness would lead to revolutions that would transform the working class into the ruling class. So keeping this concept into understanding, let's dive into historical materialism. Historical materialism is a methodological approach to understand society, history, and change. It is a new method of inquiry. It also definitely serves some bold hypotheses to explain the rise, developments, and decline of forms of society. Historical materialism not only provides a method to understand the existing social reality. Historical materialism does not only explain the existing society, but also it explains by understanding the patterns of social change. It also provides a futuristic society. Historical materialisms, definitely we are talking about historical because Karl Marx traced the evolution of history, human society from one stage to another. It is called materialistic because Karl Marx has interpreted this evolution of society in terms of materials and economic base. That leads us to the next point, that is material condition. In this process of evolution of human society from one stage to another, it is of the economic and or materialistic based. The theories state that how a society's superstructure is based on the infrastructure of economic aspect. This economic is based on the modes of production and relations, which leads us to the next point, that is based on modes of productions and class relations. Modes of productions, as explained earlier, we are talking about means of production, forces of productions, relations. All this was a foundations of society, and that history evolves through the interactions between the modes of productions and the relations of productions. The theory of historical materialism primarily outlines a sequence of societal stages based on this modes of productions and its relation. To start with how the society evolves from one stage to another, starting with primitive communisms. When we are talking about primitive communisms, we are talking about the early society, very early society. We are talking about hunter-gathering societies. We're working together as a community to survive, for the survival, using very basic tools. The productivity is also very low, and we are talking about the collective labors and common ownership. And when the production is low, there is no private ownerships, and there is no private dominations on the means of productions, and labors and productivities are shared among the communities. And so there is no class exploitations. There is a shift in this primitive communisms to class-based society begins with the developments of private properties. Developments of productive forces over time increases, and there is a developments even in the technologies such as metal tools and domestications of animals increases productivity. It allows for the creations of surplus products, which leads to the divisions in labors. And this increase in the productions and development of ownerships leads to the declines of primitive communisms. The productions become more specialized and surplus were generated. Tribal society or the communities began to break up, leading to the emergence of private properties. This shift marked the beginning of class divisions, community nobilities owning the means of productions and exploiting those who don't have. And that leads to the rise of the next stage of society, that is slavery. In slave systems, we are talking about a society between the 6,000 to 2000 BCAs. Mesopotamians, ancient Greece, Romans, empires, Egyptians, that kind of era that we are talking about. In this slave society, the society is divided into masters. Masters are the one who rules the slaves, and the slaves are the one who is oppressed. Despite of its brutalities, the slave system led to significant technological and economic advancements, including the developments of iron tools, construction, shipbuildings, and commerce. So, talking about the explorations in decline, slave revolts become common. Slaves initially drove the growth of productive forces. It eventually became inherent. Slaves having no incentives to promote productions often revolts, leading to internal divisions and weakening the great slave empire. Patrick Engels argues that this slavery is, even though it was barbaric in nature, it was a necessary step in human progress. It allows from divisions of labors between agriculturals and industrials and laid the foundations for crucial developments in the modern era. This revolt of the slavery leads to the next stage, that is the feudal society.
In feudal society, the land was the primary means of productions. Talking about the feudalism, we are talking the medieval period through 16th century, where the nobilities owned the lands and the serfs were the peasants or the laborers who worked on the land for the nobles. Feudal society, the class struggle was between the feudal lords and the serfs. The feudal system created conditions that led to the emergence of the bourgeoisies. As town grew and trade expanded, a new middle class, the bourgeoisies, were emerged. They pursued independence from feudal restrictions, which hinders their economic growth. The bourgeoisies, enriched by trade and manufactures, began to challenge feudal political powers, leading to conflict, which ultimately result in the establishment of capitalism. The rise of capitalism was influenced by several factors, including urbanizations, new technology, population growth, the emergence of new class, which is the bourgeoisies, and established capitalism. In capitalism, the means of productions are factories, raw materials, new technologies, which is owned by the bourgeoisies. The emergence of capitalist society stemmed from the overthrowing of feudalism through technological advancement and changes in the forces of productions. The class struggle in the capitalist societies is between the bourgeoisies, who own the means of productions, and the proletariats, who sell their labors for wage. Exploitations continues even in the capitalist society. In the pursuit of profit results in low wages and long working hours for the proletariats and worsening their conditions, which will lead the workers feel alienated under capitalist system. Karl Marx talks about the different types of alienations: alienated from the products of laborers, where the workers do not own the goods they produce. The products are owned and sold by the capitalists for profit, leaving the workers with no controls or connections to the product of their labors. And the second alienation is from the process of labors. In the capitalist society, the work process is often repetitive and mechanical, where the workers have little autonomy or there is no scope for creativity in their work, which leads to the sense of powerlessness. The third alienation is from themselves or being self, where the workers under capitalism is not fulfilling or engaging in purposeful activities. Labor becomes a means to an end, which alienates workers from their true nature and capacity for self realizations. And the fourth alienations that Karl Marx is talking about is alienations from other workers. Capitalist society fosters competition among workers rather than cooperations. This alienates individuals from each others as relationships are shaped by market dynamics rather than human solidarities and collective well-being. Over time, the exploitations of the proletariat intensifies as capitalists seek to maximize profit, leading to worsen the working conditions of the proletariats. These exploitations foster class consciousness among the working class as they become aware of their shared struggles and their positions as an exploited group within the system. As class consciousness grew, the proletariats began to organize and recognize the necessity of collective action that leads to the potentials for a proletariat revolution, where workers rise to overthrow the capitalist system. According to Karl Marx, this revolution would dismantle the bourgeoisie's dominations and lead to collapse of capitalism, ultimately paving the way for socialism, a system where the means of production are collectively owned and class distinctions are eliminated. In this process, Karl Marx drives us to the futuristic society where he talks about socialist and communist society. The socialist society, he considers it as a transitional stage between the capitalisms and communisms. This stage arises after our proletariat revolutions, where the working class seized control of the state and began to reshape society based on collective ownership and equality. In the socialist society, the means of productions are owned collectively by the workers or the state rather than private capitalists. This eliminates the exploitations of laborers from private profit. Another characteristics of socialist society is in this stage, the state functions as a dictatorship of the proletariats, meaning it is ruled by the working class to suppress any attempt by the former bourgeoisie to restore again the capitalisms. The goal is to dismantle capitalist structure and prevent counter-revolutionary forces. In the socialist society, the economy is also centrally planned to meet societal need rather than being driven by profit. The focus shifts toward fulfilling the needs of all citizens, including healthcare, education, housing, employment, rather than maximizing the profit for the few. During this transitional stage, there will be gradual dissolutions of class distinctions, leading to the emergence of communism. That leads us to the ultimate stage that Karl Marx is talking about, the vision of communist society, representing the final stage in the evolution of human society, emerging after overthrowing the capitalism. In this society, there would be no class distinction, no state, no private ownership. There will be no ruling bourgeoisies or an oppressed proletariats. All people are considered equal, and social hierarchy based on economic power are eliminated. It is characterized by collective ownership by the people, not by individuals or corporates, which eliminates exploitations as no one profits from the labor of others. Goods and resources will also be redistributed based on individual need rather than their ability to pay or contribute. This is embodied in the principles from each according to his ability, do each according to his need. People contribute to society according to their ability and receive what they need to live fulfilled life. In the communist stage, there will be end of alienations. Marx believed that in the communist society, individuals would no longer feel alienated from the labors, the products of their works, or from each other. Work would become a fulfilling creative activities rather than means of survival or profit. In the communist society, there will be the state won't be necessary as class division disappears and social conflict diminishes. State withers away, and people govern themselves through cooperatives and communal decision making. Marx believed that individual has the opportunity to fully develop their potentials without being constrained by economic pressure or social hierarchy. Society would prioritize human well-being, creativity, and fulfillment over profit and material accumulation. Karl Marx saw communism as the end of history, meaning the human society would no longer evolve through violence, class struggles, as the source of exploitations and inequalities would permanently eliminate. Some of the criticisms that comes along with historical materialism is that critics argue that Marx's theory is overly centered around economic factors and neglecting the other aspects like political outcomes, neglecting the influences of ideology, culture, and individual agencies, which leads to the next criticism that is oversimplifying the classifications of society into rigid stages, the complexity of historical developments, failing to account for variations and overlaps between different modes of production. Society evolves with the influencing factors from different aspects, not just by the economic aspects, which leads to the next criticisms. It undermines the role of non-economic factors such as religion, nationalisms, individual motivations in shaping social changes and also in human behavior. And also, another criticism is that the historical predictions that Karl Marx provides, particularly regarding to inevitable collapse of capitalisms and the rise of communisms, have not materialized as the invasions. Society evolves from one stage to another that based on the modes of production in economy is not that much visible when he is talking about the socialisms or the communalisms, which shakens the standpoint on the economic basis that he is trying to create. Critics point out on a lack of empirical evidence that not every society undergoes the similar frameworks that he provides, necessarily may not be from a capitalist point of view. So the trajectory that he provides may not be applicable for all the society. However, keeping that in mind, the historical materialisms provided by Karl Marx is still relevant. Too few to be mentioned, the framework for understanding changes. This historical materialisms remains a powerful framework for analyzing social change, emphasizing the connection between the economic structure and social relation. It also analyzes the class struggles. He focuses on class struggle, continues to inform contemporary discussions on inequality, labor rights, and social justice, offering insights into the dynamics of power and exploitation. Karl Marx's critique on capitalism is applicable or can be resonated even today, particularly in the discourse of globalizations, environmental degradations, and socio-economic impact. Critiques on capitalism is still applicable even in the contemporary society. The historical materialism has influences various fields of study, not only in sociology but also even in anthropology, political science, and any other subjects that prompt scholars to examine the interplay between economic system and social structure. Karl Marx's idea continues to inspire social movements that are advocating for workers' rights and radical social changes, demonstrating the ongoing relevance of his analysis in contemporary struggle. To sum up with, historical materialism offers a powerful framework for understanding the developments of society through the lens of material conditions and class relations. It also emphasized the economic basis as the foundation upon which society structure, ideologies, and institutions are built. It enables a critical examination of history that reveals the dynamics of exploitation, class struggles, and social change. Its focuses on the material conditions of life may have overlooked some aspect of human experiences. However, it still remains a foundational approach analyzing the force driving societal transformation, tools for analyzing, understanding, and influencing future societal process. Thank you so much for attending this lecture. See you in next